area for a few weeks so that they don't.
he literally, he's proving the point. What am I living in? I feel like I'm living in a clown world right now.
He engages in this same thing, right? It's such a crazy, stupid angle of attack from him. She's still doing 1 million views an hour. Insane. There are people in Indonesia studying her thesis now. It's the most downloaded research in her field for the last 100 years. Her citation count is 10x, and her H-index is now higher than Einstein. Thrilled to say I passed my Viva with no corrections, and I'm officially PH done. Olfactory ethics, the politics of smell in modern and contemporary prose. That's the title of her PhD? What is it about? Since there's some confusion about the nature of my research, here is the abstract from each thesis, which I hope will provide more context for anyone interested in learning more about my work. This thesis studies how literature registers the importance of olfactory discourse, the language of smell, and the olfactory imagination. It creates and structures our social world. The broad aim of this thesis is to offer an intersectional and wide-ranging study of olfactory oppression by establishing the underlying logics that facilitate smell's application in creating and subverting gender, class, sexual, racial, and species power structures. Okay. I focus largely on prose fiction from the modern... Does prose necessarily mean... No, prose fiction. No, okay, never mind, it doesn't. Okay, she's specified. Prose fiction from the modern and contemporary periods so as to trace the legacy of olfactory prejudice into today and situate its contemporary relevance. I suggest that smell very often invokes identity in a way that signifies an individual's worth and status in an inarguable manner that short-circuits conscious reflection. This can be accounted for by acknowledging olfaction's strongly affective nature, which produces such strong bodily sensations and emotions that reflexivity is bypassed in favor of a behavioral or cognitive solution that assuages the intense feelings almost immediately. Knowledge, which produces such strong bodily sensations and emotions that reflexivity is bypassed. Wouldn't it be that reflexivity is what is happening rather than behavioral or cognitive situation? Or olfactory disgust, therefore, I don't know, maybe I just don't understand this. Olfactory disgust, therefore, tends to result in rejection, while harmful forms of olfactory desire may result in sublimation or subjugation. My thesis is particularly attentive to tensions and ambivalences that complicate the typically bifurcated affective spectrum of olfactory experiences, drawing attention to displeasurable olfactory relations that have sociopolitical utility. I argue that literary fiction is not only an arena in which olfactory logics can be instantiated, but also a laboratory in which possibilities for new kinds of relations and connections can be fostered and tested. Jesus. Chapter 1 explores how smell can be used to indicate class antipathies, partly as they relate to homelessness, beginning with George Orwell's seminal nonfiction text, The Road to Someplace, before considering Ian Sinclair's The Last London. Well, I don't know. Bong Joon-ho's Parasite. Oh yeah, I was going to say that came up in the movie Parasite. I explore fanatical, idealistic topic thinking that frontal faction, which presents smell as fundamentally non-human. Of misogynor based. Coextensive anti-black racism, misogyny that black women experience and considers. Okay. What is her this is what her PhD is in. What would you consider, what was the area of study, I guess? I don't know. English literature? It's an English degree. Oh. I mean, isn't this what you would kind of expect PhDs to write about? Like stuff related to... Reflexivity means the reflexive relationship, as in your ability to think about your thoughts. Oh, I thought it would be... Wait. Okay. This thread tries to explain the abstract. Wait, what else? Why do we need a thread to explain the abstract? It just sounds like she's writing a paper exploring how, I guess, the language of smell, and because our smelling sensation evokes without even thinking about it, such strong feelings about things that in prose, in fiction, basically you can write a way about how a person smells or something like this, and you can evoke incredibly strong feelings in people. And then it's basically an analysis of how descriptions of smell in literature, I guess, can be used to implicate different types of class, sexual relationships, racial classes, or whatever. It sounds basically what it's about, right? Which is true. I mean, like it sounds. I guess it sounds like snooty, but I mean, it's a PhD in English. What else would we expect them to write about? I don't understand. What are we supposed to be mad at here? Tim Pool's reaction to her. Oh no. It's not about the topic, it's how it's pointlessly worded. This is the fall of academia. Wait, what part of this is pointlessly worded? Or what part of this would you change? I feel like this is maybe I've been reading too much weird. I feel like this is relatively concise. Like, yeah, the language is pretty elevated, but it's the abstract to a PhD thesis. This isn't probably meant for like publishing for like an ordinary human being to read, but I feel like this was a pretty concisely worded thing. Like, what part of this do you think is unnecessarily flowery or useless? It's ironic that she uses George Orwell. He would absolutely abhor her writing style. I don't know what Orwell has written on this particular topic, but my guess is he probably wouldn't. Orwell would probably say she's writing a PhD thesis in English literature, and it's not going to read like a Harry Potter book.
Over this past holiday week, a story was taking the internet by storm. It's a story of a young woman who is saying with the smile on her...
No, don't do this. Oh God, I'm about to get super triggered, aren't I? Oh boy.
...face that she got her PhD. She did it. No corrections. She made it. Now, why would this story go viral? Well, of course, there are many liberals claiming that it's because the internet is full of right-wing misogyny and they just don't like women scientists. The reality is that her thesis was called Olfactory Ethics, the Politics of Smell in Modern and Contemporary Prose. Yes, she literally wrote her thesis about how smells are racist. That's right. That because people smell things in fictional writing, let me clarify that, because there are descriptors of how people smell in fictional writing, it implies that people are racist to other people because they smell bad or something like that.
No, it's a thing that people draw on. You know this. How many of you guys spent time on 4chan where the number one insult against Indians are how they smell like curry? This is a thing that we all know intuitively to be true. Of course you can invoke these things. And then her abstract references, I don't know if she was just referencing a book or if this is a book before a movie, but this is brought up in fiction as well. This is such a stupid thing. Everybody knows this. This is one of the symbols that they use to illustrate that, like, there are inseparable differences between groups, or no matter how much you try to leave a certain background. I guess you can read this a different way, but that even in these people that are faking being rich, some of the servants are low class or whatever, people are trying to fake being upper class or whatever, they couldn't escape the smell of poverty.
똑같다. 둘이 냄새가 똑같아. 뭔 소리야?
And it's funny because it's a child making the observation, right? Which I guess arguably furthers her thesis. It wouldn't surprise me actually if she literally written about this exactly in her book, in her thesis, that like a child knows this so intuitively and so quickly that it is like even a child will make these connections between different types of people. Like her conclusions could be mega cringe. Is their thesis? I'm not doing this. We're not going over this. I don't even know if I could read her whole thesis. It might be that it might be too much, like too advanced. Somebody link her thesis. Fuck me. Oh God, I'm gonna hate my life. Well, hold on. No, I'm sure Tim Pool goes over it. He does a whole 15-minute video on it. He must be reading. I'm sure he read it before.
Now, there are, of course, liberals defending her, saying it's made for experts to understand. No, this is the death of academia. This is some woman being like, I've got nothing to contribute to anything meaningful to society. So let me just say, smells are racist, and you're racist for smelling people. Well, I can't help that some people smell, and I smell them and find it unpleasant. There are, and this is a fact, not so much about race, but it's diet. People smell differently based on the foods they eat. Fact. Like if you're on a keto diet, for instance, you may stink. What do they call it? Acetone breath. And then there are other diets that are, curry and other things. And this is, I don't know if it's urban legend because I'm not special force or whatever. But I've heard that when people are going military, are going to be embedded in a certain area, they will eat the diet of that area for a few weeks so that they don't.
he literally is.
He's proving the point. What am I living in? I feel like I'm living in a clown world right now. Oh, fuck. Holy shit, he literally did the thing.
Don't smell odd. You get accustomed to what they call nose blindness. Everybody around you eat the same food. They all kind of smell the same, except for people don't take showers. But if you go to
Somebody typed something in chat, and I don't know if this is part of her thesis, but somebody said something in chat about how like the olfactory senses are connected like right to your thing or whatever, and you can't ignore them because it's uniquely connected to your emotions. Or that might actually be true, because now that I think about it, like you can see things and you can kind of like rationalize away, like seeing certain things, like if you see a scar on somebody or if you hear a thing like a lisp or something, you can get used to whatever. Smells are really difficult to just ignore, and I think they do. I feel like they actually do connect a little bit. I don't know if I'm overvaluing this for the sake of argument though, but I'm trying to think, like there are times where, have you ever had an experience where you walk into an area or you smell something and it's connected to something in your past and you have a massive explosion of like a prior memory or something comes back to you in a really, really, really insane way. But I don't know, maybe there are other things like maybe in sight or whatever, maybe you can see a thing and maybe this happens as well. I'm not sure. I don't know. Like in a romantic sense, it's funny because people will say, like girls or boys will hold on to their like the fucking like sweaters or pillows or whatever the fuck bullshit, or oh, my girlfriend, has this shampoo, or my boyfriend has this whatever. What am I looking at? Repository URL. Is this what I'm looking for? This content is currently under embargo. Okay.
another country where people are eating dramatically different things, you'll notice they smell different. And so this woman said it's racist. It's racist indeed. Okay, let's break this down. Let's talk about the absurdity of the modern condition. And we have this tweet from Homath. He said,
is any of this going to be an analysis of the actual thesis? Why am I even asking this?
This woman is why everything is falling apart. Well, let me just pause right there and say, well, this woman is not why it's all falling apart, but I get what he's saying. She is a component of the decline of, I don't know, intelligent thought. She's got the ultimate BS degree, a PhD about why describing smells is racist. Okay, he put it better than I did. I read the abstract for you. It's full of BS language, unnecessary big words, and pretentious sentence structure. She could have said the same thing simply, but she didn't want to. No.
It's an abstract to a PhD thesis in English literature, okay? It's not written for a 2-minute Fox News article. Like, well, also, again, and I will say this over and over again, you have to point out, I say this when people accuse me of this, like, oh, like that article that we've written where Hassan was accused of this, but he said that these were all taken out of context. Out of what context? Explain. Wait, what would you change? What would you change in this? Give some suggested corrections or whatever, right? What do you think? What part was unnecessary? At Destiny, there's no way of not looking at it when it's a smell. Do conservatives intentionally become more retarded to critique things that you don't like? You understand that you can smell things that aren't in the room with you anymore, right? You know that like smell is one of the, maybe the only, in a way, a sense that transcends time, that like, that's how dogs track people. They don't look at things. They smell things of where they were. Like, what an unbelievably retarded fucking thing to say. Holy shit. Olfactory memory network. Oh, this is a different paper. Don't care. Okay.
Now look. The argument that's being made is that she used academic language, and that's written for experts because they are pretentious. We get it. And she
if sometimes people are pretentious, but like which part of it? Assuages stood out to me as a bit over the top. Wait. This can be accounted for by acknowledging olfaction's strongly affective nature, which produces such strong bodily sensations and emotions that reflexivity is bypassed in favor of a behavioral or cognitive solution that assuages the intense feeling most immediately. What would you use here instead? Something to satisfy or make you feel okay about an intense feeling most immediately. Is what it, to assuage something means that, right? To like comfort or satisfy or to make feel okay about everything, right? I don't use this word too often. Yeah, to make an unpleasant feeling less intense. This is like this is a really good word. It's assuage, right?
Assuage.
Yeah. It's the perfect word for this sentence. What would you do it instead?
She responded with, I don't express my ideas like this to regular people, but it still is on point to say it is jargon garbled nonsense where these people who want to sound smarter than you try and talk a certain way.
Then break it down. Why not just demand an example of this? Like say, I actually still don't fully understand this sentence. I don't think it's because it's written. I just don't. Maybe I'm just not sure what the reflexivity part here is referring to. But like, give an example of it. So like, oh, like I don't think this makes any sense, or I think that this is just useless jargon, or I think that this is like worth. Like, give an example. Like, give one example of this. Like, just give me an example of something that you think was written poorly or demonstrates poor prose, and then what you would write differently. Like when I said that Cecilia person was a hack fuck, and I didn't like her writing, I was able to point to these as specific things. If you're going to write this, you should satisfy it with an example. Post a link or give an example of like a thing and then a rebuttal. Like give an example of this. You can't just say this. I don't even know if there's any English lit jargon in here. Maybe sublimation or subjugation? Okay.
On point to say it is jargon garbled nonsense where these people who want to sound smarter than you try and talk a certain way.
Do you think that that's really what's going on here? She's like, I want to sound smart to my, like, it's, I don't know. Never mind. It's so funny because in a way, he's engaging in the exact performativity that he's accusing her of engaging in. She publishes a PhD, a thesis, that I don't know if that means she's already defended it. Do you publish, but you must defend it and then you publish it, I'm guessing, right? So she got her PhD in order to get a PhD because that's what her goal was, right? And now he is trying to sound smart or in tune to his audience by blasting this PhD without having actually, does he actually read any of it? Like,
her thesis statement is basically, if you say someone stinks, people like them less. You know, like we all learned from watching cartoons when we were 4. She got a PhD for this. And from the looks of her, she probably believes that this entitles her to an extremely high status lifestyle.
I'm so sorry. Do you think people going after English PhDs think they're going to become billionaires? Yeah, it actually is totally normal for me to get paid $5 million a year for non-exclusive licensing deals for shows I don't give a fuck about. That's actually super normal in my line of work. It's not. He lied about that entire thing, by the way, and was caught lying for over 10 minutes to Sam Cedar about every single part of it because he's a hack fuck who takes money from foreign governments to spread propaganda about his own country.
Yep. Remember
this is just going to be me pausing for 10 minutes and like, does he have an example of this or does he say anything specifically about this? That's this whole video. I'll stop doing that.
It's when they tell you that women are beating men at getting an education. Good luck to whoever has to pay off those loans, and don't forget, call her doctor. Okay, well, she linked her thesis. Wait, here's...
Remember this when they tell you that women are beating men at getting an education. Oh, so that's just a rumor then. They're not. Oh, in that case, we don't have to talk about like men's issues with college or anything like that because that's all bullshit. They're not getting real degrees, right? Like women are retarded, I guess. They're not actually starting to beat men in average earnings in certain racial groups. That's just all bullshit. And the income gap's not closing. The education gap doesn't actually matter at all. Okay, no, you're right. None of that actually matters. Okay, true. Men are fine. Yeah, they don't need any help for schooling anything. True, all bullshit. Good luck to whoever has to pay off those loans. And don't forget, call her doctor. And what, he's mad that PhD gives you the title of doctor? Holy shit. The hardest thing, the most flowery, I don't even want to call it flowery language. Maybe you can argue some things are flowery, but like PhD language is going to be pretty particular. It's a specific field. I don't know. All right.
To whoever has to pay off those loans, and don't forget, call her doctor. Okay, well, she linked her thesis. Wait, here's a response. What do you say? Law of self-defense said, to what extent was your PhD subsidized by taxpayers, and when do you plan demanding that middle-class Americans working trades pay off your student loans? And it says...
I'm sorry, but like middle-class Americans working trades. What the fuck is that specific fucking demographic call out? How much of a tool are you? Like, I see that you just did an English PhD. Can you tell me how much second generation Hispanic plumbers in New York City are going to have to work to pay off your Jesus.
The OP's photo clearly indicates that she did her PhD at the University of Cambridge, which is in the UK. Fair point. Yeah, I didn't say nothing about that. But I think we have her abstract in this Forbes article. There's a lot of nasty stuff there, for sure. I don't think anybody should be threatening her or whatever. But I'm going to read for you the abstract, because this is...
Oh, cool. He's going to actually read the abstract. Okay, cool. Let's hear it. Let's hear his breakdown. All right. Oh, he's going to give... Thank God. I would have paid a lot of money. Thank you. And I get this content for free? What a great world we live in. All right.
Culture war, my friends, and this abstract exemplifies academia is dead, education is fake. You've got to learn in the real world, do your own research, and figure out what is functional, because the institutions are corrupt and they have failed.
The idea that the world is all about functionality and that should be the only thing that matters when you literally make 7 figures a year working in entertainment. you are the equivalent of a theater major. The topics that you discuss are all soft science, sociology based. You have never had a conversation of substance about engineering or any hard science in the history of your entire show. Everything that you do is soft science based. How do you not understand that on your show, you do the equivalent of a gender studies degree when you talk about the red pill? You do the equivalent of a sociology degree when you talk about trouble between the classes. You do the equivalent of every type of a literature degree or of an arts degree when you talk about how Marvel movies have too much wokeness in them. Like, all of this is soft science culture shit, and that's all you do. You don't know anything about any hard science in your entire life, and you don't discuss any of it. How could you be so critical of people that pursue the same things in academia? What a stupid comment. Gee, like, at the very least, if this was like, it's the Tim Pool Astrophysics Hour, where we talk about the problematic natures of dark matter and the implications for the expansion of the universe, oh, fine. And you would be like, why do people waste time on this bullshit? Okay, that's fine. Motherfucker, you have a show called Culture War, and you're criticizing people that get English lit degrees?
Anyway, abstract. This thesis studies how literature registers the importance of olfactory discourse, the language of smell, and the olfactory imagination it creates. In structuring our social world, the broad aim of this thesis is to offer an intersectional and wide-ranging study of olfactory oppression by establishing the underlying logics that facilitate smell's application in creating and subverting.
Notice how he's getting triggered just by certain words that he recognizes. It's funny because I tell people this. I say this. There are certain words that I'll never use the phrase toxic masculinity. I never call myself a feminist. Not because I don't agree with those concepts of those things, but just because I know it triggers some people so much. I can't say it. It's too much of a snowflake conversation to, if I even say those things, I've already turned off like half the audience. You can't handle hearing those words. It's over. Toxic masculinity is like the N word for white people. Like, as soon as you say it, like the fucking warrior mode is on. It's like, ah!
In structuring our social world, the broad aim of this thesis is to offer an intersectional and wide...
Right? Intersectional, that was a trigger word. And then oppression, that's a trigger word.
Ranging study of olfactory oppression by establishing the underlying logics that facilitate smell's application in creating and subverting gender, class, sexual, racial, and species-powered structures. Species! Lady, come on. Dogs smell like wet dog. Okay, we don't like it. Some people maybe do, I guess. She goes on to say, I focus largely on prose fiction from the modern and contemporary periods so as to trace the legacy of olfactory prejudice in today and situate its contemporary relevance. I suggest that smell very often invokes identity in a way that signifies an individual's worth and status in an inarguable manner. That short circuits conscious reflection. This can be accounted for by acknowledging
Like, does he? Why not? Is he criticizing any of? Is there a criticism for anything that's being said? Is there even anything he disagrees with here? By the way,
Olfaction's strongly effective nature in favor of a behavioral or cognitive solution that assuages the intense feeling most immediately. Olfactory disgust, therefore, tends to result in rejection, while harmful forms of olfactory desire may result in sublimation or subjugation. Seriously? Bifurcated affective spectrum of olfactory experiences, drawing attention to this displeasurable olfactory relations that have sociopolitical utility. I argue that literary fiction is not only an arena in which olfactory logics can be instantiated, but also a laboratory in which possibilities for new kinds of relations and connections can be fostered and tested. Chapter 1 explores how smell can be used to indicate class antipathies, partly as they relate to homelessness. Beginning with George Orwell's seminal nonfiction text, The Road to, Wigan Pier, before considering Lane Sinclair's The Last London and Bong Joon-ho's Parasite. In Chapter 2, I explore the fantastical, idealistic, and utopic thinking that surrounds olfaction, which presents smell as a fundamentally non-human by addressing J.M. Coetzee's Disgrace, Virginia Woolf's Flush. Ah, heavens me, I'm not reading the rest of this. In layman's terms, when people smell bad, it is used as a classist, gendered, sexual, racial, or species-related matter of oppression. Lord, help us. But you know what? This reaction is exactly what needs to happen. Now, I will stress, the people that are saying nasty things to this woman, like threats.
So does he just not like that he thinks he already agrees with it, so it's not worth writing? Like, what is the prime, or what is the central criticism of the paper?
But you know what? This reaction is exactly what needs to happen. Now, I will stress, the people that are saying nasty things to this woman, like threats and stuff, like, dude, you are making things worse. And you also are an example of everything that's wrong. You've got the snooty, over-the-top, let me...
Do you agree with the thesis? The thesis of the thesis? I mean, I think so. If that's literally just the first sentence, it's how can you disagree with it? It's just talking about how, I don't even know what the argument being made in here is, but this thesis studies how literature registers the importance of olfactory discourse, the language of smell, and the olfactory imagination it creates in structuring our social world. So it sounds like it's just basically an analysis of how smells are used or described in fictional writing through history and how that can probably map onto societal understandings, expectations, discriminations, like, like good and bad opinions about different classes or groups of people throughout different societies. This is my guess. This is basically what it's talking about. There could be interesting things in this paper. It might be really boring. I don't really like English lit stuff that much, but I don't even know if you can disagree with that. Like, yeah. And then it probably, I don't know, then she does an analysis and her thesis of these different things. Yeah. But I don't know what, I don't know what here is, what is here that you would be mad at?
For making things worse. And
I think the argument is the last sentence of paragraph 1. Oh, I argue that literary fiction is not only an arena in which olfactory logics can be instantiated, but also a laboratory in which possibilities for new kinds of relations and connections can be fostered and tested. Okay, sure. So the argument here would be that you could, in an intentional way, describe smells differently in fiction literature in order to cause people to have different thoughts or feelings or beliefs about whatever particular thing you're writing about, I guess, right?
also are an example of everything that's wrong. You've got the snooty, over-the-top. Let me explain to you quite briefly. Well, smelling someone can be a tool of oppression. Species-related is my favorite. Skunks stink. You stop oppressing the skunk. Stink bugs stink. They're intentionally smelly to make us not want to go near them. But I digress. It is the snooty elitism, where it's like, I'm smarter than you because I found out that smells are displeasant. Sure. But then you've got other people on the other side who are saying really nasty things to this woman, like saying that she should, like lose her life or something like.
Isn't that just language in general, always filtered through some sort of bias, though? Why is it specifically centered around smell? Because that's what she's writing her thesis on. What do you mean? Why is anything around anything? Because that's what... Could you give an example of what a paper like this might be cited for? What a paper like this might be cited for? Fuck, I don't know. I don't do English literature. I mean, I could make shit up, or I have no clue. I don't know. I don't write studies or write PhD anything. I don't have any formal study at all in English literature. I imagine other people could probably source it or something, I guess. Something that I think, if I were to sit here and think, if I were to sit on this enough, I could actually bullshit my way through that. No, this isn't bullshit. I could think of a way to legitimately say this. Here's an interesting, I don't know if this would be considered olfactory or taste, but I can usually tell immediately if a person is racist based on how they describe spicy food. And this was a thing for a while that I think Lauren Chen might have tweeted this out. Do you remember when when people were doing this thing where they were like, what did she describe? Or was it Brittany Venti? She described spices in food as adding dirt to it or something. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Dirt spices. That's like a very intentional invocation of olfactory, and I'm sure there's a smarter word for taste, sensation to evoke a feeling about a given group of people. It was Sydney Watson. I'm sorry, I mix all the Nazi women up. If your food requires you to put dirt spices all over it in order for it to be palatable, your food is not good, right? This would be an example, but yeah. But, she also, was she the same person who, was she the same one who tweeted out that if Sydney Watson, I'm not going to be able to find it. I don't know if it was her or somebody else. Somebody said that if Kamala Harris wins the presidency, the White House is going to smell like curry, right? That's not just a, oh no, curry smell. That's an invocation of so many things I don't know if I would just say racially, nationalistically, like intersectionally. Like you're invoking so much there when you say that. Like, and everyone knows this, right? Obviously, you're not just saying like, oh no, like it's going to smell like a certain type of food. Was that Laura Loomer? You're invoking a lot there with sense of smell right here. If Kamala Harris wins, the White House will smell like curry, and White House speeches will be facilitated via a call center. The American people will only be able to convey their feedback through a customer satisfaction survey at the end of the call that nobody will understand, right? Like all of these things are being used, like this smell here is signaling a different class, a different race, something beneath us, right? Like this is. We use this. It's used in memes. I brought it up earlier. Tim Pool, ironically enough, brought it up as a counterexample, even though it proves the point, the curry thing, right? It's like these are relevant conversations that we have. It's just so funny that like, and I'm not even here to defend an English thesis. One, because I'm not even in English lit. I don't have to. It's not my job. And two, I just don't know anything about it. But like the idea that this is such a worthless conversation, nobody cares or talks about it. This was a really big tweet. There was a lot of conversation about that. Well, for like a day, I guess. But that's because Laura Loomer was big for other reasons too. But like, yeah, I don't know. But just like, come on, Jesus. Okay, fuck me. Anyway.
Get out of here with all that stuff. What we want is sound, reasonable criticism of the absurdities, such as this. Ma'am, we get it. Nobody needed to write down and add to the academic knowledge base that smells can be pleasurable or displeasurable. We don't.
That's not even what the thesis is about. The thesis is about tying in a special relation, like more so than your sense of sight or your sense of hearing. It's about tying specifically smells to these strong emotional states that we have in order to demean or uplift, I guess, the things, the classifications that she mentioned, right? So he's not even hitting on what our thesis is actually about.
That smells can be pleasurable or displeasurable. We don't need it. It is not functional nor practical. This is an example of a person being like, I have nothing to contribute at all, so let me just say, I don't know, smells are racist.
Like, that's so reductionist. And you can use smells in racially descriptive ways, like we literally just did. We just looked at a Laura Loomer thing. Like,
I gotta be honest. Part of me imagines this woman like smoking pot in her dorm room with her friends, and then she's just like, I got nothing. I mean, like, what is there even to write about in literature? Like, their books. And then the friend is like, I bet you could just say things like, I don't know, white paper is racist because the white is greater than the black ink. And then she probably laughs. She's like, dude, I'll just... No, then what happened was the guy's like, this weed is some skunk. And then she was like, oh, dude, I'm just going to write a thesis about how smells are racist. And they started laughing. And she was like, dude, I bet it'll work. I'll get a PhD, watch. I would actually respect that tremendously if she came out and said, they actually gave me a PhD for this and chucked it into a fireplace. But no, she's serious.
Is that what he does? Is that his thought process for topics that he's going to go over every day? Like,
and this is the problem. You're going to spend money on these degrees. Look at this. Forbes says an unexpected post went viral over the weekend. In it, a University of Cambridge student shared the fact that she completed her PhD. The woman in question, Dr. Ali Lukes, celebrated finishing her thesis with an unassuming tweet that somehow caused outrage online. Have a look and see if you can decipher why. Here we go. Oh, it's because it's a woman. It's a picture of a woman. And it's because it's olfactory ethics. Because it's a woman. Line. Have a look and see if you can decipher why. Here we go. Oh, it's because it's a woman. It's a picture of a woman. And it's because it's olfactory ethics. It's funny because it's not even about actual smells. It's about descriptions of smells in fiction.
Imagine if you could use descriptions of smells in order to evoke like strong feelings, right? Like, woman shows off shocking transformation after becoming transgender and identifying as a man. Like, what if I wanted to evoke like a strong feeling about like disgust here? Maybe if I read her thesis, maybe I would have new ways to like attack this person, right? Like, rather than trying to write out some long thing, I could just say, oh, yes, ma'am, you are now disgusting. I feel like I can smell you through my phone. It's an odd thing to attack somebody for, unless you, what are we invoking here, right? What is being invoked here? That men smell a different way than women? Does she necessarily look unclean? Or is it just like he engages in this same thing, right?
It's such a crazy, stupid angle of attack from him.
Like, I'm going to write a story and be like, as I was walking into the prison, it smelled like human waste. Oh, that is oppression. At the time of writing, the post had been viewed over 24 million times. In fact, right now, 39.8 million.
To be fair, I don't think you understand what Tim Pool is saying. He's saying her thesis is pure common sense and making something of nothing. Not respectfully, sir. Usually when you say something is pure common sense, you just don't understand what's being said. I could be wrong, and maybe I'm dramatically overrating her thesis, but I seriously doubt that her paper is just like, and in the book, the animals in that country, the main character says that the black person smells bad, and that's racist. My guess is the thesis is probably exploring the ways that language is used and can be traced to societal beliefs, or develop some framework to analyze how smells are described and how that can reflect. It's probably an analysis of different types of relational things relating to smell and literature and society and culture. It's not just like, and in this book, here's the 42 instances of racism that happen in the book Sugar. That'd be my guess. Maybe it actually is a really shady thesis, but I'm not saying it's pure common sense. I'm saying that's Tim Pool's perception. It seemed like you were confused because he was agreeing with what she said. Well, his point is no. Even if that's his point, I'm not sure if that's his main point, but that is part of one of the points, is that it's common sense. But he's not even understanding what's being spoken about. Like, it's just stupid.
Viewed over 24 million times. In fact, right now, 39.8 million times. Lord help us. Guess why? Well, it's about her paper entitled Olfactory Ethics, the Politics of Smell in Modern and Contemporary Prose. It focused on the use of scent in literature, and a large Twitter X community took umbrage with that. On the surface, there's nothing overly remarkable about our social media post. I think it is. I think it's her being like, I wrote garbled nonsense, and they gave me a doctorate, and now I'm a doctor. Dude, I'm sorry. If that qualifies this lady to be a doctor,
like, what are you ass pained about, bro? You don't have the fucking title? Are you just mad about the title of PhD or what? Like,
I got way more accolades that should make me a doctor. You know what? I'm
he is. Okay. He's just jealous. He's jelly.
a doctor now. I have hereby decreed, and you too at home, I hereby decree you all to be doctors. Are you a plumber? How long have you been a plumber? Can you unclog a toilet effectively? Well, I give you hereby award the Timcast Media Honorary Doctorate Plumber. What's the point? You know, I made this point a long time ago. A bunch of my friends did. Because we were joking about how you could go online and buy fake degrees. And no one ever checks. It's stupid. So what's the point of going to school if they're going to give anyone a degree for anything?
First of all, you don't get a degree for anything. Also, you just get a fake degree because no one checks. Isn't she literally a professor at Columbia now? Or did I make that up? I thought I just read that somewhere. So my guess is they probably check.
Now, me personally, I have developed several technologies and methodologies in media. In fact, I and my cohorts were the first ever to use aerial drones for media broadcasting and news coverage. Fact. I and my cohorts were the first to do a live video broadcast via aerial drone. That's right.
Okay, so go write a paper about it. I mean, like, what? Did you document any part of this, or did you write up anything about this to make the information more accessible to any other person? Did you detail or catalog any part of this process to contribute to the overall body of knowledge of broadcasting or drone usage or live stream or anything else? Or did you just do a thing, right? If you're not going to write about it, you're not going to have a paper about it, and you're not going to have a, like, what?
Right. For this, I was brought on by a university, and which was sponsored by a government agency, as well as a media corporation, to go down and select the first ever drone testing site. And I did. No one really showed up. It was me and like one guy from the AP, but that's all true. I'm not kidding about that stuff. So back in 2011, during Occupy Wall Street, some friends and I, we took an AR Parrot drone, which could broadcast video from the drone to your phone, and we simply hacked it to broadcast that signal right over the internet, and we used it during an Occupy Wall Street protest. It was very cool. I don't have a degree.
I don't even believe him. I bet he didn't do this. I just don't believe anything he says.
I have a high school diploma. I don't have a doctorate. And you know what? Now, normally I wouldn't say, I'd be like, I'm not going to humble brag, but I want to stress this. Having done that, who is more deserving of a doctorate? Me or this lady who says describing smells is racist? I guess sexist and classist.
The fact that you can't even describe, you hacked a AR parrot to send something to the internet instead of to a phone. I don't even know what the fuck that means. What was it, communicating via Bluetooth before or whatever? And you like, did you add a whole separate, like, what would it be, like a Wi-Fi? So you'd have to do like a whole board modification of whatever I don't even know what he's talking about. Does he have a video in depth describing what he did? I bet he didn't even do any of the tech work there. I want to hear it. I want to hear him describe that from start to finish. Somebody link a video.
Assist too. And speciesist? Speciesist? I don't know. You get the point. I'm not asking for a doctorate. I don't want one. I have given guest lectures to PhD courses, but it just goes to show you that academia is fake. Most of the inventions we see out there aren't coming from people who went to college and got doctorates or degrees. If you look at the average...
What do you mean? She's not going to be inventing things as an English literature major. That's not her job. We have different things that we do in society that have different values for different reasons.
Billionaire? College dropout billionaires tend to have substantially more money than college than billionaires with doctorates or degrees.
What an unbelievably fucking weird what an insane cohort. One, I don't even know if that's true. Elon, oh wait, and he's saying PhD in particular. I don't even know how many billionaire type things he would even get a PhD for. But like Elon Musk didn't he finish college? Fuck. Did he have a degree in something? Am I making this up? 2 bachelors. He has 2 degrees. He's not even leaving any for the rest of us. But he wants to very specifically focus on PhDs. I don't even know what the fuck the point is of this.
You look at Microsoft, you look at Apple. Bill Gates and Tim Apple, I'm kidding, Steve Jobs, we get it. They dropped out. A lot of these people dropped out. School is a waste of your time. Unless you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, I get it. If you're...
Just to be clear, those people dropped out because school was holding them back, not because they couldn't read or pass fucking remedial English, okay? Or Algebra 1, all right? So if you're some fucking knuckle-dragging retard who's getting a D- in his... in his high school 6th grade English class, it's not boding too well for you, Chief.
If your goal is to actually work in real research, you probably still don't even need to go to a university, depending on what you're doing.
Where do you think the labs and the funding for these labs fucking comes from? Hold on, I could be wrong, I'm sorry. I just have heard so much anecdotal stuff to the opposite of this, and maybe I'm missing a huge thing, but isn't like the number one reason to go to school sometimes because I want to work in research and I want access to the school's labs? Isn't this where like the vast majority of funding for, I feel like I've heard multiple friends say this, like sometimes you might just go and work just because they have the best lab, or they have the most money or the funding for this lab, or you might like work with people from school because they have this lab. Where are these huge labs, I'm pretty sure even private companies will go to like school labs and shit to test, and like, what do you do? Where
a doctor or a lawyer, I get it. If your goal is to actually work in real research, you probably still don't even need to go to a university, depending on what you're doing.
Like what research jobs and what labs are you working at? Like outside of university, like name a couple. I'm curious. Let your audience know.
You may need basic training in handling chemicals and using facilities if you're going to do chemistry and other things like that at a private pharmaceutical or something. I get it. There is
basic, dude. I'm sorry. It's just so retarded. This is like the ultimate Dunning-Kruger. I don't think I've ever heard anybody Dunning-Kruger harder in my entire fucking life before. Like, imagine walking into a lab and they're like, "What do you want to do?" And it's like, okay, so just finished Iron Man 2. Bigger elements. You just got to put another fucking neutron in there or whatever, right? Or another proton. I just want to make some of those. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, I'm just a random guy, no college degree, but I know how to handle the basic chemicals. Okay, I know a little bit of machine button pushing. So like, can I just like do this? Like that's all you need, right? You just need to know how to handle chemicals. Like I'm wearing the thick gloves. I wear 2 gloves for mercury nitrate or whatever killed that woman in that one doctor video. Okay, so I've got my lab training.
using facilities, if you're going to do chemistry and other things like that at a private pharmaceutical or something, I get it. There is a place for university, but it ain't this. And this is what...
It ain't this. It's not for research labs. What? The only thing you learn in university, in AR labs, because where do you train, I guess, right? In your school lab, is how to operate the Bunsen burner and basic chemistry. And then you go off to the big boy labs that are all in Facebook headquarters and Google headquarters.
People are making fun of. Now, a lot of them are getting their facts wrong. That's fine. Nobody should be threatening this lady, but she exemplifies the failures of modern academic institutions. Seize the endowments, shut them down. Intersectional oppression. Okay. Well, you do you. I always find it funny when we have conservative guests on the show, on Timcast IRL, and they're like, I'm sending my children to college. And I'm like, why? You and I complain all the time about this. But whatever, man. You do you. I'm going to wrap it up there. Smash that like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Become a member over at timcast.com to support our work. And you, too, as a member of timcast.com.
Okay, so Destiny, you've actually admitted that literature and art are just a reflection of the time. So then why is research so important? Maybe funding should be primarily reserved for STEM, which is something that actually progresses over time. Because at the end of the day, you are a human being and you don't give a fuck about hard sciences because nobody gives a fuck. What you really care about at the end of the day is culture. The best thing that hard sciences do is give you access to more cultures because these are the things that enrich and fulfill us as human beings. These are the things, you don't go through life remembering, oh my God, you're on your deathbed and your children are like, what were the happiest parts, Grandpa? I remember forever they said that we would never be able to make microprocessor architecture that was less than 20 nanometers. And when Intel came out with the first 14 nanometer chip, and the electrons were just phasing through the... Like, nobody remembers that. You remember your favorite movies, your favorite songs and music. You remember going to dances in high school. You remember memes from the internet. Like, this is the quintessential human experience, okay? Technology and STEM and all that is amazing. But it's usually... It's amazing ways it enriches your life and it allows you to explore more culture. Also, STEM already probably gets way more funding than the arts and the humanities and all that as well.
Have a degree, a PhD. If you sign up at
like motherfuckers will argue that STEM is the only thing that matters and we don't need to waste time on history. And then you'll go on arguing for 15 hours on fucking Twitter about how Germany should have won World War II. Or like, we don't need to waste time on anthropology and the humanities. And then you'll argue about why Rome really fell because of multiculturalism and immigration. Like, Jesus, like what the shit, you don't talk about hard science. Let me be clear. Let me dispel the illusion right now. If you're a person on here arguing that STEM is the only thing that matters, you don't know anything about STEM. You're probably not an engineer. If you are, you probably don't know any other fucking science outside of the very narrow button pushing that you do as a literal monkey for your job. Okay. Most of you don't work in like the hardcore, like I need to know a fuck ton of science, and you're not debating or arguing about it or consuming that media when you go online. Everything that you consume is squarely within the arena of arts and humanities. You watch movies. Okay. You listen to podcasts. You fucking play video games, right? You're not practicing your hard fucking science in 99% of your life. Sorry. Okay.
At a $10 level, you get an honorary bachelor's degree. Verbally given, there's no guarantees, and I only verbally bequeath all of our members as having degrees. And if you sign up for the $25 level, I verbally just state as here and right now, it's a master's. And if you give more than that, then you are hereby officially doctor. And maybe we should give everybody in the Discord server titles. Because that's how stupid the system has gotten, isn't it? All right, everybody, I'll wrap it up there. Stick around. We got more segments coming up, and we'll see you all shortly.
Short Fat Otaku said...
Great. And Tim, you left school at 14?
Yeah.
And then just...
Yeah, I was at high school for like 2 months.
You're just like, I'm done.
Oh, it's the stupidest waste of time.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're not advocating not graduating high school, though.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Really?
Huge waste of time. There's this weird conflating of a high school diploma with a path to success. It makes literally no sense. Taking someone who's 14 and saying, go into an institutionalized learning facility which will give you no real-world life skills for 4 years, talk about wasting formative years. What I did, I was programming websites, I was doing Flash animation, I was making video games, I was playing music, I was traveling, I was skateboarding, traveling around the area of the city, meeting people, and expanding my horizons, while my friends were locked in a box, learning for the 5th year. So, like, I can't even tell you if they learned anything, because the reason why I was like, I'm done with this, I remember going to
programming websites at 14 years old in the year 2000. What websites were you building? Was he configuring his GeoCities account? Was he adding a little bit of HTML to his AOL Instant Messenger away message?
High school math class.
Which, excuse me, okay, hold on. Sorry, I'm being dismissive of shit. But actually, tweaking and messing around with like elementary stuff like that you're interested in at an early age is actually incredibly beneficial if you want to do these things later on in life, because it gives you familiarity with a lot of the underlying subject matter. It might lead to you doing reading or research, not like research at a school, but just like reading of guides on how to make more sophisticated stuff in the future. There's nothing wrong with that if you like to mess around with that, but
we'll call it. Teacher walks in. She goes, turn to page 17 and do those problems, and then walks out of the room. And then we're all sitting around like, what just happened? And that was every single math class was that. And I'm like, okay. And my favorite was sitting in a room in English class and having someone go, the teacher says, all right, everyone turn to page 47, and we're going to read the story from Mark Twain. And I'm sitting there, and then, Jeremy, can you read the encyclopedia
today, Junior.
And so I'm just like, bro, I could read this whole thing in 10 seconds. What am I doing here? This is wasting my time. So I just stopped. I'm out.
Were you living with your parents at the time?
Yeah, so with my mom. My parents were split up.
I thought don't you legally have to attend school until you're 16 in the U.S.? Maybe it was different in some states, or.
And then actually what happened was I'm 14, and they did this weird thing where they changed our schedule from, in grade school, it was 7:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Then they decided for freshman year at the local high school, we're going to do 10:45 a.m. to like 5:30 p.m. And a lot of parents were upset. They were like, this means that in winter, 14-year-old kids are going to be leaving high school in the dark. Like, that's crazy. And so it was like a kind of a cultural shock for me at 14, because you get out of school at 2:30, you go to the park. You'd hang out with your friends. You'd come home. It's 2:30 of the whole day ahead of you. School got out. Woo. Now it's like I wake up at 6 in the morning, because that's what the schedule always had been my entire life. But now I'm sitting in my living room with my hands on my knees like, daytime TV, People's Court is on. What am I supposed to do with this? Get to school at 10:45, get out at 6, and it's time for dinner, time for bed. And so it was ridiculously stressful. And then after 2 months of insane nonsense, not learning a damn thing, I'm 14, I'm halfway to school, and I just sit down in the grass, I started crying, and then I got up and turned around, went home, called my mom and said I'm not going to school anymore.
What'd she say?
I can't really remember. I think she said okay.
Really? What?
Yeah.
Your mom was just
She's
cool with you
freaking
dropping out of
supportive
high
as
school
hell.
in ninth grade?
I went from being a straight A student to a straight F student from grade school to high school, and so my parents were already like, something's not happening
What
here.
changed during that time? Like, did you have a life-changing event, a bad breakup? Were you smoking weed? Were you hanging out with some crowd? Were you reading a new book? Were you into something or no?
Nope.
Really?
No. In my life, I've smoked weed a handful of times. It just doesn't do anything for me. Wasn't hanging out with a bad crowd. Playing music. But I think the big issue was, since I was a little kid, my family's had computers. I built my first computer when I was probably 7 or 8 years old. It sounds impressive to the average person, but it's like I went to a thrift store, bought 5 pieces, and stuck them together like Legos. It's not the craziest thing in the world. Installed Windows on it. So my family's got CompuServe.
I might be mega retarded. 386. What could you? Could you even buy computer parts when he was 7 years old? I'm trying to think when I put, like, in the days of like before the Celeron. Could you even buy, like, maybe you could, in the year. It would have been in the year 1992. I'm trying to think of what would the slot have been? Would it have been AGP? I don't even know. You said grade 7, not 7 years old. Oh, my bad. Okay, maybe, yeah. I don't know.
We've got AOL. I'm online. I'm reading about the president. I'm reading about the world.
This is Clinton at this point, or Bush?
This was, I think this was Bush. Yeah, this is shortly after 9/11, I think.
How many? Damn, I wonder how much would that have even cost back then? I remember the very first computer part I ever bought. It was $80. I remember this. It was in a CompUSA or something, or a Radio Shack. I don't remember. It was an $80 buy for a 40 gigabyte hard drive.
I think so. I think I was 14. It's shortly after. So I'm reading all this stuff online about what's going on. Not a whole lot, but I was programming things in Flash. I was making websites. I was skateboarding. In my life, I'm doing all of these things that every day was improving. Learning how to use Flash to make a website. And everyone's like, wow, you made a website. Making an animation where, I mean, they're crude Flash animations like newgrounds.com stuff. But every day I could see something more. I started programming video games. Within 5 days, I've made a rudimentary video game that's kind of like Mario Bros. A platformer where you play a little guy running through a factory and there's little monsters and stuff. These are things that were tangible that I could see were being completed. Then I go to school and they're tying my hands together and saying, sit down, shut up, and do nothing. And it's like being locked in prison. And so eventually I was just like, I'm not doing this. I'm done.
You have kids?
No.
When you have kids, you're going to send them to high school?
Probably not. No, probably not. I mean, I'm going to homeschool. I plan on having kids, but they're going to be homeschooled. Probably some kind of local pod learning thing. You want kids to socialize with each other, but I think kids should be learning from adults, not from kids. And I think one of the biggest things that we do today as a society is we have children learn from each other. We separate kids from their parents like cows and calves. Then we put the kids in a box where they don't care for the teacher and the teacher doesn't care for them. And then all of their social interactions are predicated upon other kids, the behaviors of other kids. When I was growing up, my family at a coffee shop, all of my social interactions are with people in their 30s who are buying coffee and complaining about Republicans or Democrats. So here I am, I'm 10 years old, and all I want to do is buy Pokemon when it comes out, and I'm trying to save it for the tip jar. But when I'm sitting there, the conversation isn't, did you hear what Billy said about, Power Rangers? It's, did you see what policy was passed? I can't believe they're doing this. And that's the stuff I'm absorbing. The behaviors I'm learning from are adults in semi-professional settings. They're at the coffee shop, they're writing, they're working, or they're playing music. My mom's showing me how to manage the business and the finances. Then I go back to this, I'm like 6th or 7th grade, and all of the kids are imitating each other. So what's going to happen when these kids grow up? Well, I'm not surprised to find that I'm running a business, and most of my friends are just working regular jobs. They've not.
I'm so curious about, so he could afford to buy the parts to build a computer, and his parents were okay with him dropping out of school when he was 14. I'm so curious what his parents did for work, or what that early stuff was like.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing that everyone has to do it. I'm saying don't be surprised if you take a kid, you put them in an environment where they learn how businesses work and businesses run, and when they grow up, they're doing those things. You plant the seeds, those seeds will grow.
Pat, you're a similar story, right?
Well, not 14, but there's a part of what he's talking about that, he's got a good point. I mean, what we don't know about...
Oh, shit. Somebody actually has a video, I think I might have seen this before, of Tim Pool speaking when he was 13 years old.
On age. And I look, and I go around sometimes, and I hang out with other people that are my age, and they're just kind of just... My phone, selfie. I'm just like, dude, oh my God, can we talk about the political and economic state of the world right now?
About is the following. Tim, how old are you? 86 is what? So
37.
So you're 37. Okay, so we don't know what it is to be 14 today. Think about it. We don't know what it is to be 14 today, and how you're fed stuff, and how you view the world when you're talking about, you're in high school and you're going through it, and we were at AOL chat. I'm thinking 1994 was AOL chat. If a friend of you was on AOL chat, hey, meet me in this room, and you would go, and I was like, oh my God, turn on the AOL chat. You wait a couple minutes. So things in journalism is changing in a very different way. Think about today's Tim Pool. Tim at 14 years old today. What is that kid doing today?
Wow.
What route is he taking? What's pissing him off? What journey is he going to be going through? Where 20 years from now, the next Tim Pool you're sitting, and he's telling us about what it's like to be 14 in 2023, and we have to sit there and watch it. I got an 11-year-old, 9-year-old, 6-year-old, and a almost 2-year-old in a month, and I talk to them and ask them, so what do you learn in school about politics? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And with Tico, he can have a full-blown conversation with you at 11.
Yeah.
He wants to have that conversation. Dylan wants to talk Patrick Mahomes. Dylan wants to talk sports. He's a sports guy. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens next 20 years with us. So even with you, you interview a lot of people. You're in the streets. They contact you. I'm assuming a lot of the 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds today, that could be the next Tim Pools, probably look up to you. They see what you did. Maybe some of them are watching the next citizen journalist. What do you think is going to happen with how citizen journalism is going to evolve over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
Well, so it depends on your definition of citizen journalism. The original definition was when an act of journalism was undertaken by a citizen. So when they started calling me a citizen journalist, it was an act of derision to separate me from the corporate press. Citizen journalism was a guy's walking his dog down the street. When he sees a burning building, he pulls out his phone, he films it, and then uploads it to Twitter. He never thinks twice. He carries on his day, and then CBS says, can we use this footage? What they did was they took a professional or independent journalist like me and many others who specifically bought equipment, who make money doing this, who sell footage, and they said, you're just a citizen journalist. That way, when we would go to events, namely I'm speaking at an event, they had guys actually stand up and question. They had a panel of corporate journalists saying, citizen journalism.
On today's the following. Here's a great thing. Remember that one song? It's Friday.
Oh, God, worst song ever. Rebecca Black.
Yeah, 8 million views.
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I even listening to this song? This is driving me insane. I'm listening to It's Friday. And then you're like, dude, look at the comments. It was like the worst dislike, thumbs down video ever on YouTube. She broke the record, and they interviewed her. 165 million views. How many? It's not going to show the thumbs down. That's what. If I were president and I say this, I will end the war in one day. It would take 24 hours. I know Zelensky well. I know Putin well. I would get that ended in a period of 24 hours. It would be easy. The deal would be easy. Do you agree with
100%.
that? Tell me why.
Trump's going to go to Putin and say, we are ending all support for the Ukrainians in this matter. Here's the concessions we're going to make. I imagine what people need to understand about what this.
Why don't these people ever answer, if Trump could end the war in one day, why didn't he end it in 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020? What happened? Why didn't he end it then? He was president before, right? Why didn't he just end it then?
Means Trump likely hands over Donbass to Russia, hands over Sevastopol, Crimea to Russia. Confirmed, done, end of story. The history of what's going on in this region is very, very complicated. The average person probably doesn't know. And I can only go so far back. There's something called the Qatar-Turkey pipeline. Back in 2009, the CIA intended to oust the...
The history is really complicated. Let me explain. So the CIA...
Assad regime, because they would not allow us to build a natural gas pipeline through Syria, Turkey, into Europe to offset Russia's natural...
Oh, Ryan Dawson used to talk about this. The pipeline. Anytime you want to hear some crazy shit about history in either Eastern Europe or the Middle East, it always begins with a pipeline somewhere. And that's why we went to war with Iraq. That's why we did the Syrian civil war, destabilization. It's all about the pipelines.
Gas monopoly in Ukraine. So what ends up happening is Western powers go to Syria and say, hey, we want to build this pipeline. It's going to go through Syria, through Turkey. They say, no, explicitly. We are allied with Russia, and that would be against their interests. What then happens is, I think it was Iran and Russia say, let's build our own version of this pipeline, tapping the same natural gas source.
Destiny, I assume because no real military action happened during that period. That is not true. Russia was fighting with Ukraine in the Donbass from 2016 up through 2020. That is not true. There was stuff happening. And Russia had occupied Crimea that entire time as well.
And running it up, bolstering our natural gas control into Europe. There's a lot of reasons for why the West was upset about it. One of them is that the point of the EU and the reason they want cheap energy is so they can develop economically faster to compete with China. When they were looking at this massive dependence on high-cost Russian natural gas and an inability to get any alternatives into Europe, they said, let's end Syria. Fortunately for the West, a civil war just happened to have broken out, for whatever reason, and we were on the opposite side of that. ISIS then emerges, Syria destabilizes, how very convenient. Joe Biden's son becomes a board member of an energy company in Ukraine. Surprise, surprise, also a former CIA director is also on the board of Burisma. Joe Biden then goes to Ukraine and tells the president, if you don't fire the prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, you're not getting $1 billion in loan guarantees, which is illegal, I might add. The vice president does not have the authority to stop congressionally approved loan guarantees to another country, but hey, they impeach.
Unless he was speaking about a stop that was literally already part of the deal, but
Donald Trump for that, but you don't care that Joe Biden did it. I think the principal reason of what's happening here is Russia is impeding our ability to expand in Europe economically. Nord Stream 2, for instance, who blew that up? Likely, I think, what did they say?
Navy SEALs, probably.
I think they're saying it was CIA assisted, and it was like the British, perhaps. I gotta follow.
They don't have a clear answer, I think.
No.
how much of what he's saying right now is factually untrue? The underlying facts are generally correct, but the implications he's making are all bullshit. Temple is horrible, but addressing him via clips is so lame. One, I don't watch clips. I generally watch long-form content, which I am doing right now, and I did before, so you. And two, if you want to argue about any of this in person, I would gladly do it, but he won't ever talk to me, especially now that he knows I'm not letting this type of bullshit slide. So blame him, not me.